A lot of fear out there right now, plaguing organizations, plaguing professionals, plaguing individuals. And it's interesting in that fear actually leads us to the wrong conclusions. We absolutely, positively need to react to fear. You can't dismiss it entirely, and I think it's important to separate. There's two types of fears. There's anxieties, which is fear of fear itself, which often leads to paralysis. And then there's good fear, fear of being outside your comfort zone, because it lets you know that you're doing something worthy of notice. The only way to get rid of fear of failure, and this is by far one of the most important and common fears that plagues organizations, is to realize that the only way to get rid of it is by doing nothing worthy of notice. Nothing exceptional. Keep your head down. Do what you're told. Do it the same way it's always been done. Don't ever question it. Is that a recipe for success, do you think, when the roadmap is constantly changing? All too often, fear leads us to paralysis. So fearlessness is not the state of being without fear. It's understanding the right things to be afraid of and how do we react smartly when we're confronted by them. On the flip side, if we allow ourselves to be paralyzed by fear, then we actually wind up causing our own worst nightmares to come true. To me, that's a scarier outcome. So if you think about it, we would remain static. When we're confronted by fear and anxiety, oftentimes we freeze up. And as an organization, what do we do when we're not making numbers for the quarter? Or when our brands seem to be not as loved as before? We try and do more of the same, okay? We try and become more economical about it. Build more widgets faster and cheaper. But the problem is, the world is changing. We are essentially remaining static, while processes, markets, competitors, brands, these are all evolving around us. And so if you remain static while the roadmap is shifting, it's the equivalent of putting yourself on cruise control and going headlong into a tree. Because if the path sits there in front of you and it changes suddenly, you've got to be able to react. So flexibility is key. And when it comes to seeing ahead of the curve, seeing the future, we've got to have platforms, processes, and people in place that are already looking 3 to 5 steps ahead, that are already experimenting with new approaches, keeping an eye on new technologies, and understanding that we absolutely must change and evolve. To stand still while the world moves around us, that's actually the unnatural state. The world moves constantly, the world changes constantly, and it's always evolving. And as professionals and organizations, we've got to be too.